Americans of Reddit, what is something non-Americans will never get? If you or a loved one has been diagnosed with mesothelioma, you may be entitled to compensation. Root beer. Almost every foreigner will just say it tastes like toothpaste. I gotta get me some European toothpaste. The game were those fireworks or gunshots? Hey, some people try hunting with fireworks. I tease my money and I need IT now. Call JG Wentworth. 877 cash now. I've heard a Canadian rant about the fact that we often say MHM as a response to thank you instead of you're welcome. He thought of it as snobby and rude when in reality it is the equivalent of saying of course. Brit abroad, I once saw Walmart selling a frozen turkey with a 6-pack of Miller Lite, I think, taped around it as some kind of Super Bowl special or something. I'm not one for generalization, but that one made me chuckle. The sheer vast size and the lack of trains. I had a friend from England get all excited about coming to visit America because he thought he would be able to tour around and visit all of his American online friends. I felt so bad telling him that driving from California to Georgia isn't exactly a day trip. My GF has a lab mate from the Netherlands who said he wanted to take his family from Wisconsin to Montana to see the mountains. It shouldn't be a long trip, it's basically one road the whole way. That road is Interstate 90, and it is the longest interstate in the US at just under 5,000 kilometers end to end. Don't worry though, Wisconsin to Montana is only a measly half that. This applies to really every group of people, but it still isn't understood somehow that there are plenty of rational Americans who are no different than anyone else in the world who stays informed with the events in the world. The American stereotypes and outlaws make the news and movies. The normal ones just live their lives anonymously. American living in Europe. Apparently peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. It blows my co-workers' minds why anyone would eat that. Meanwhile they're eating butter and jelly sandwiches like that's not weird. How amazing true barbecue over a smoker is. Top tier brisket is honestly one of the best foods known to mankind. Smoked pulled pork is the only food that can make my mouth water on thought. There are some really top-notch beers in America. They just aren't at 7/11. The crappy beers are the ones everyone knows because they are made cheaply by huge companies that can afford to advertise the frick out of them. Most of the good beers don't have much at all in the way of advertisement in the US, and seem to rely mostly on word of mouth. Lots of idioms that are specific to the US. I was talking to a South African friend and casually tossed out the phrase "came out swinging" and he looked at me like I was from another planet. This obviously happens even more for non-native speakers. My German teacher told us a story about how he tried to use the phrase "a big cheese" in German. He was cleaning up the apartment he lived in because his boss was coming over. When asked why by his German roommate, he said, "Die Großkurs kommen." The German had no idea why the American was preparing for a large shipment of cheese. This may be a narrow response, but I don't think they'll ever understand the intricacies of Protestantism in the southeastern US. So many subsects, and not even over important doctrinal things. We're talking split churches over the color of the carpet, or the accepted role of the youth pastor, not to mention the sway it has over public policies. It's one of those topics that I could rant on for a few hours. A few years back my grandparents' church had a huge argument over having chairs or pews in the church. Our country rose to power in a shockingly small amount of time and was built by certain people who also rose from nothing to everything. People like Carnegie and Rockefeller. Because of this, there is a pressure on people to make it big quick and be constantly concerned with doing awesome in college so you can get that amazing career, so you can get rich, so you can get that big house and lifestyle you want. I might be wrong, but people in other countries just seem so much more content with living a smaller life, which I think is cool. College sports, especially football and to an extent basketball. I'd possibly lump that in with how people feel about their respective universities. The apparel, the home daycare, the license plates. People are really proud of where they went to school, and if their athletics program is good then there you go. People may not realize Michigan's football stadium is the same size if not bigger than fricking Camp Nou. Why we can't make guns illegal overnight in America. Studying in Norway currently, land of the rule followers, and have met way too many friends who seem to think Americans would willfully hand guns over to government because they said so. That's hilarious. Americans are predisposed to distrust our government. The idea of trusting that one's government will do what is best if left alone is laughable over here. Suburbia. In the post-World War II baby boom and economic upswing, the US began a process of moving from cities to suburbs. Levittown was founded in 1947 outside of New York City and became the model for this kind of living. People flocked to it, particularly the affluent white people who drive American culture. Levittown itself was restricted to Caucasians. I think that many cultural differences that non-Americans are wowed by come from this period. The insulated individualism of Americans comes from selling cheap houses to individual families rather than large-scale apartment buildings. This necessitated a car culture which fed back on itself. The suburbs took over farmland, so food growing needed to be centralized in the Midwestern states. That meant long-haul trucking, which meant more paved highways and ultimately the interstate highway system, which was also a civil defense structure for when the Russians invaded. This is why so many Americans can't drive standard transmission cars, because the model here is that the majority of a commute is on the highway. Even the red plastic cup that always comes up on Reddit threads as something that fascinates tourists in the US owes itself to suburbia. When an American family wants to get together with other families, rather than go out to a public park, they'll invite everyone to one house. With so many people, it doesn't make sense to use the best dishes, cups, and flatware, so disposables are much more popular. Paris is around 1,500 miles from Moscow. Los Angeles is around 2,500 miles from New York. The reason many Americans do not have a passport or speak a foreign language is that we barely have enough time to explore our own country. What y'all in Europe call traveling to another country we call commuting to work. Taxes. They aren't included in the price tag because taxes vary depending on where you are and companies want to be able to advertise a single price across different states and cities. Non-American, but I'll chime in anyways. To you Americans, something non-Americans will never understand. Biscuits and gravy. None of us will ever understand your love of country gravy. Probably the sheer size of the country, unless you're from Russia, Canada, China, or somewhere else of comparable size. The idea that you can't drive to the Grand Canyon from New York City in a day will likely be difficult to grasp at first. Had to explain to someone at Niagara Falls that they can't see New York City from there. United States is big and a lot of areas just don't have sidewalks or managed bike lanes, so a car is very needed and in some locations a 100% necessity. Also locations are much further away. Like I am not that far from NYC, but I still need to drive one way about 45 minutes till I hit a mall to go shopping. The real sound a tornado makes as it goes over your trailer park. It doesn't sound like a freight train, more like a B-1 bomber at full afterburner. Chili, and the concept of mixing anything with it. I brought chili and fritters to make frito pie for the Austrians I visited a while back, and it absolutely blew their mind that anyone would even think of combining the two. Chili by itself was also pretty far out there for them too, but they at least tried it. When an American says I'm Irish, they are not saying I am a citizen of Ireland. Muscle cars. Going fast in a straight line developed because of the size of the country and lots of straight lines everywhere. Why is my car Camden goes wum 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 wum? Because I wanted to. We call ourselves Americans because there is no good alternative to refer to our citizens. We know that the USA is not the only country in the Americas, but what else do you want us to call ourselves? USalians? Stations? The US Gov will prevent its citizens from having their rights violated overseas. Example, Amanda Knox. She was found guilty, then it was overturned, and she was found not guilty. She came home. Italy issued an arrest warrant for her, and the Dodge refused to comply on the grounds of double jeopardy. Can't be tried for the same crime twice. Pretty much every single British person I've met since moving to England thinks that Route 66 still exists as a whole. They don't know that only small pieces of it exist only as a tourist attraction and that you can no longer drive across the country on it. I tell them to take Interstate 70 as a replacement and they're not interested. Blows my mind. If your dirty laundry got as much international news media attention, your country would look like a bunch of arrogant, homophobic racists. 2. Apparently how much we value our individuality and autonomy, and the fact that we trust the general citizenry more than we trust our government. Why we call people African Americans and Asian Americans or any other weird thing. We are all Americans. I've never heard of an African German or Asian Englishman. Just because we use imperial units of measure does not mean we don't understand metric units. We use both regularly. You'll never get to win the World Series of baseball, even if your country plays it. Other than a couple Canadian teams, we don't invite outsiders to the World Championships. There are 50 states, not 52. Yes, I'm sure. Really, I'm sure. You're thinking of playing cards. Free refills, and not just on soda, French fries, chips, ice cream, salad greens, breadsticks, meat, if it's served, somewhere has free refills of it. Please don't call me Yank, I'm from Louisiana and that is just insulting. I'm a NY living in the South. When I was in London and got called a Yankee I didn't even realize it was someone referring to me as American and not as a Northerner. Just how fun a day of shooting things in the country can be. There's nothing like gathering up some old TVs, maybe an old car, a little bit of tannerite, and a few friends with their arsenals to come out and have a shootout. I don't hunt. I don't think I need a gun for protection, but dang are they fun to shoot. It's funny because that's something that even many Americans don't understand. Why we do things the way we do and get peed off when people either try to tell us what to do or say why don't you do it like other country, with zero attempt understanding our history and culture, as much as Americans get crap on for not understanding the rest of the world. Plenty of international people I've met don't know much of the US beyond the current news either. The US has distinct regional cultures in addition to a national culture. Try the regional cuisine when you come visit and don't think that all we eat are hamburger and hot dogs. I am native NYC and when I've traveled to different parts of the country I treat it like I'm visiting another country. For example, I research the local or regional specialty and then look for the best places to eat it. V8 engines and really big trucks. Big trucks with mud tires are stupid and a waste of time and money. Put person behind the wheel of a V8 mud truck. Oh crap, this is fun as frick. That there is a difference in culture, values, food, or appearance. I had someone legitimately try to tell me that someone from Boston will be exactly the same as someone from BFE Louisiana, and that person will be the same as someone from Seattle, and that person will be no different than an Amish lady from Lancaster. Those are 4 people who quite literally have nothing in common with each other. S'mores and, in a lot of places, mac and cheese. My Finnish friend had her first s'more when she was 17 and without graham crackers, so is it even a s'more? She also thought that mac and cheese was only something she imagined until she was like 15. You have been visited by the hangover papa. Comment, do a recover, papa, and you will never suffer from hangover again. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.